Your hosts, Landon and Jade, are a married couple of 17 years and counting, are here to give you a swift kick in the ass. There will be some tough love, but we are here to support you to the greatest life you can have. We will bring the sarcasm and humor. You just bring yourself. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Backroads to Us. On this episode, we're going to talk about using the word trauma. Is it actually trauma, or is it you're just struggling? Can you replace those words, or is it actual trauma? So we're going to go into a little bit about this. I'm going to start off with reading a definition of what they consider trauma. Okay, so trauma says it is either a serious injury to the body, as from physical violence or an accident, or severe emotional or mental distress caused by an experience, or an experience that causes severe anxiety or emotional distress, such as rape or combat. Okay, so with that, the big thing is I think what we're hearing a lot now is trauma is used like the one psychologist described it as a buzzword, meaning people are just using it. I almost feel like people are using it just to get attention or making their situations feel worse than they are. I feel like a lot of the issues that people are going through, you could just say you're struggling. Struggling is an issue that deserves attention, just like trauma does. You're struggling and you need some help one way or the other.
Everything just seems to be labeled as trauma. It's like it's shotgunned. It's everything just falls under that instead of actually dealing with the actual problem. You have an emotional problem, but they all consider it emotional trauma or this trauma or whatever. I mean, trauma used to be one of those things where you got shot in combat or your arm was blown off or you got your arm cut off because, there was that hiker that got stuck under that rock and he cut his own arm off,
Oh, yeah.
to survive. So, I mean, those types of trauma is actually, something that people deal with all the time. And the generation that we've come to is getting softer. It's a trauma that, oh, someone looked at me wrong or they were rude to me or whatever. And it's not trauma. You have an emotional problem you need to get over. You need to deal with
Yes.
it. Like, the world's not fair. That's the way it is. Get over it. Move on. Get stronger. Be mentally stronger. Just, you know, make yourself better. I mean, everything doesn't have to be labeled as a trauma.
Yeah, I think people, it's like they want to make their emotional or physical problems worse than they are so they get the attention. So I think when they use the word trauma, like nowadays, everything now is either labeled, there's a new word for every problem that's out there. Like everyone's wanting to come up with some stupid word to say that they have a problem. It's like, no, you just, like you said, get over whatever it is. People are misusing or trying to label an issue because they feel like it's more important if it has a name. And it's like, no, you just need to like you said, get over it. Deal with it. It
Well,
doesn't
yeah. I
need to be.
mean, sometimes you don't can't just get over something. I mean, there's a way to deal with it, but
Mm-hmm.
there's a way to deal with it other than just labeling it trauma and telling everybody you've been traumatized. I mean, that's in a way it's kind of, I don't know if you want to say disrespectful or whatever, but to someone that has been a rape victim or a combat victim or someone that's been had a real significant trauma to their brain or a physical trauma, when someone calls you a name or isn't nice to you or rude to you and you label it as a trauma, you're almost in a way disrespecting someone that has had an actual trauma that is
Yes.
trying to deal with it because you just can't deal with your emotional stress.
Yes. Yeah. I feel like it's they're trying to, I think a person is just trying to get, they want to be seen, they want to be heard. So if they use the word trauma, that is an actual word that was used and still is used for people who actually have a trauma. So they feel like if I say that, then I'm going to get the same attention, I'm going to get the same help. And it's just as important to actually specify, you need to be able to say that right now I'm struggling. I went through something that caused me to struggle. I went through a divorce, I went through um
Anything, a breakup, divorce,
yeah,
relationship problem, you know,
I had a bad time at work, I had whatever it is. Yes, you're struggling. That's important too, and you need to work through it, but let's stop throwing out the word trauma. Let's leave that for the people who actually deserve and need that word, whether they want that word or not. But people have gone through that kind of thing, and I think, like you said, I think it's a little bit disrespectful to the people who've actually gone through that. I don't think that's right to do that. So, in the last episode, we kind of went over my story, and I have a hard time using the word trauma on it, but you would think by definition, yes, it is. It is something that is continually reoccurring. It hasn't gone away. It's, emotional distress. It's thinking, someone's hurt. You're going to get hurt. You look at the world differently. Um, so I think technically we could use mine as trauma. I feel like I'm a little bit on that borderline of it, but let's talk about some of the issues. So, even if you're just struggling, you're still going to cause issues and contentions in your relationship with whatever you're going through if you're not going to deal with it. So, let's talk about some of the things with that issue, that situation I had when I was younger, how that affected our marriage. Because obviously, after that happened, I was about 14 years old. So, I went through a period there, obviously, before I was married. It wasn't anything that I dealt with. Um, I didn't go to therapy, didn't talk about it. Our family kind of just dealt with it and moved on as best you can because it's not something you actually move on from. When a person is still missing, you can actually move on from that. It feels like it's still always there. But we found a way to move forward, but you kind of slipped it under the rug because it was just easier not to talk about it. And I don't feel like that's always the best case. You don't want to beat it to death. Obviously, you want to be able to have good conversations about it and then kind of let it go and move on. I feel like that's the way to do it. But with me not doing that when I was younger, when we were married, a few of the things that come up with that is a big issue that I had and still have a little bit is abandonment issues, which is kind of, yes. And so with that, um, a big problem I had when we were first married was I remember one time Landon went to the store and he went to the store and he forgot his phone. And for some reason, I felt like he was gone for a really long time. And I don't know why. And I really don't remember a lot of, I just remember feeling that he's never coming back kind of thing. It's like my abandonment issues is they're there 1 minute and gone the next. So I feel like if he's gone, he goes to the, like that. He went to the store and it felt like it was taking too long and I couldn't get a hold of him. So my mind went to instant worst case scenario and I thought he was dead. Like I'm afraid of abandonment by death, not abandonment by just, moving on with life, getting divorced or something like that. It's you'll never see him again. You don't have a time to say goodbye, those kind of things. So I felt like I was freaking out. He comes home, doesn't understand. I mean, he can see it on my face that I was having a freak out internally. Like I just wanted to sit there and bawl and cry because I don't know why I went that place. But that was such a very intense reaction that shouldn't have even happened. It really shouldn't have. So with that, we created a system, something that helped me feel better by, but also not like being too crazy. I don't feel like so. If we're going somewhere like you go to work, you go somewhere else, you just get a quick text of "I'm here, I made it." It takes just a couple seconds, but it made me feel so much better to get that because it's life now. Things happen. People get in car accidents. You can get hurt. And for me, that was just a little bit I needed to feel safe about that. And it really helped me start to get better and to cope with it. And now if we forget to text each other, it doesn't happen very often. But if we do, it's not like a freak out. It's just a text of, did you actually make it? Yep. Okay, we're good. Like, did it feel does it feel like it's a big deal for you to do that, to text? Does it bother you?
No, I mean, I think I kind of like it too because I mean, part of me likes knowing where you are because when you talk about the situation that happened, I mean, it's always in the back of my mind like it's a protection thing, like liking to know where you are just because you know what's happened, you know what can happen. If someone's never been in the situation that you're in, like they don't understand where you're coming from because they've never been there.
Mm-hmm.
And where we've known each other so long, like I seen it happen. I was there when it happened, and and so you continue to see and know what could happen.
Yeah.
So that's always in the back of your mind that you don't want that to happen. So it's a nice thing to just know where you're at. I mean, some people don't like it because they feel like it's a control thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like it's a control. Like, I mean, just to send a quick message, I'm here, I made it to my appointment, or hey, I'm on my way home. So that, I mean, it's as simple enough as to say you're coming home from work, and if you shoot me a text, say on my way home, and in 20 minutes, if you're not home, what's going on? Like, did you get in a car accident? Is
Mm-hmm.
everything okay, or whatever? Then at least you have an idea where you're just wondering, hey, how come she hasn't been home for an hour? Well, she should have been home 20 minutes ago. So,
Yeah.
hey, is everything okay? Oh yeah, I'm stuck in traffic. Okay, perfect. Like, nothing to worry about, but at least you kind of have that know of everything's okay, because I mean, you can't protect every situation, but anything you can do, with us that helps that situation, it's just worked out for us better.
Yeah, I think it's more of like an emotionally secure thing. Like you said, you can't control every situation, but you can help mitigate the other issues, I guess, that come with it, or the other feelings. And if there's ways to make us
Yeah, because that
feel,
emotional, distress. I mean, it's one of those things that's kind of like it's hard to get over because it's burned into your brain. Like,
mm-hmm.
this is a traumatic thing that happened, and whether you want to react however you react when a situation happens, sometimes it just does it because you automatically have a flashback to that thing that you don't want, that thing that
Mm-hmm.
traumatized you, that thing that's you know that you want to go away but just can't because you never want to forget what happened. Because I think if you forget what happened or put it under the rug or just put it on the back burner, it's almost in the same way as you don't want to disrespect that because the trauma that you feel and the emotion that you feel is almost a respect for your sister, because
Mm-hmm.
it's like that you let yourself know how much she meant to you. You let yourself know what she meant by the stress you feel, because it's if you have a sibling that died, like, you never want to not feel the pain of what happened, because it's almost like if you forget about it and don't remember what it felt like, then it's almost like they didn't mean that much to you. But
Yeah.
when that person meant that much to you, if you remember what it felt like when you got the phone call, or still what you feel like now knowing what's still going on, then that you realize how much that person actually meant to you, because the feelings are still there. Like, you don't
Yeah.
want to forget it, because that's how much that person means. So it's never anything that you want to totally forget. It may not be something you want to talk about or get brought up all the time, but you never forget how you felt on the day. You never forget how you still feel, because she was that close.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so it's one of those things where if you've had an event like that, you got to find some way to deal with it and move on. But moving on and being okay with it and dealing with it are different things, because you're never going to be okay with what happened,
Yeah.
but you can move on and you
Mm-hmm.
can still have a life and you can still make things work. So there's a difference there.
Yeah, I think when people have a traumatic experience, I think the hardest thing is letting all the emotions and all that stuff, let it go. And really, you have to let some of that go. You have to, or else it's going to weigh you down and you'll never move forward, because you have to move forward. There has to be some sort of resolution with your life of coming to a place where you're like you said, you're remembering that, but you're also living your life. You're never forgetting it and it's there, but when you
Yeah.
think about it, you don't have the unhealthy response of whatever that is. There's ways, I mean, that's when people have PTSD, there are healthy ways to cope with it. I feel like you're always going to have that, but there's a healthy way to deal with those
Well,
things.
there's plenty of people that have coming back from the military experience and have legitimate PTSD,
Yes.
and you see those people in a job and a career, and they found a way to deal with it, and they're doing awesome, and
Mm-hmm.
that's great. And then you see others that don't deal with it so well, and it's because maybe they haven't found the right way to deal with it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not a good thing. There needs to be some sort of help for them to get where they need to be so that they can live their life.
And be okay
Because
asking for
yeah,
help.
and whatever, and then being able to have the person that they can ask,
Mm-hmm.
that will help them, that will be there for them, because those types of traumatic experiences, it's kind of sad, just because some people never get that help or
No.
meet that person that helps them,
Mm-hmm.
and that can go through life and help them deal with whatever's going wrong for that day. I mean, because like you said, when you get a stressful situation like that, or trauma, like, there's always going to be a flashback, or there's always going to be
Yeah.
a time you think about it and it sends you into a little bit of a depression mode, and you got to have that person that can help dig you out of it, because that was something you will never forget. I mean, you can't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's literally almost burnt into your brain.
Yeah. It's wired
Yeah.
into you. And and with that coming to the fact of you need to be able to ask for help, I think people uh when they think asking for help, they think of it as weak. They feel like it's I can do it on my own, and I know I did that. I was very much like, no, I'm fine. I can do it. Like I put off this strong persona of no, I got it. Like I'm fine, but behind closed doors, I'm not. I wasn't fine at all. And one of the things I didn't even realize until just recently, I feel like probably 3 to 4 years ago, I could never really not really understand, but I have a very hard time having really strong connections with other females. My friendships are mainly with males. I feel like you don't have to go as deep. Maybe that's how I want to say it. You don't have to feel like you have that really deep connection. There, you can joke around, play with females. They want to get deep with you. They want to get to know you. They want to have that connection. And for me, where my best friend was my sister, and I lose her so young, I didn't realize that when I was getting friends with other women, it's like the same thing of abandonment. I was afraid of getting that really big emotional connection with another female because I was afraid of that person leaving. So I can see that I stepped away from really getting close to other females. Even now to this day, it's kind of I think I've kind of gotten better with it, but I still don't. It's like I don't want to get close to another girl and get that connection of almost feeling like having another sister or a really close best friend, because I've gone through 2 or 3 really close friends that I've allowed myself to do that. And every time, whether it's been my fault or not, there's been that separation. And I think I put way too much behind that, I guess. Like, I feel like I'm either an all or nothing. I either am superficial with the girl friendships, or I want to be like that really close friendship with, which is okay. But when that person basically kind of moves on, or things just happen in life and you kind of separate, I have those abandonment issues with that. So that is actually something recently that I'm working on, because I just recently realized what I was doing. And I feel like I've lost out on some stuff because I put up that wall of not wanting to get close. So it's in the stuff that I do now, I do some modeling and things like that, and you're all around a lot of females. And the last experience we had when we went to Vegas and did that shoot with Exposed Sports, it was almost kind of a freeing thing for me, because those women are so sweet and they're just so nice, and it's just such a nice energy around all those women, and it was wonderful. It kind of made me realize that I need to let go of that shit. I mean, I'm in my 30s and I'm still dealing with stuff. So definitely I think that you have to kind of look back and continually to work on it, because you may think that, oh, I healed. And then all of a sudden something pops up and you're like, oh shit, I did not. Like there's so many layers. It's like an onion. And I think trauma is that you heal one layer and then you go deeper, and then you heal that and then you go deeper and you go deeper. And it's okay. Like, it's okay to continue to do that, because you have to at some point realize that you're not perfect, that you're always going to be working to do something, to heal something, to be a better person, new goals. And I had to kind of be okay with realizing that I still need to fix things about me. And I shouldn't say fix, but there's things I want to work on better. Um, and with that, when you don't try to heal or when you're realizing these healing things, um, a lot of ways that people deal with that is toxic. You really have toxic coping mechanisms, drugs, alcohol. You could have habits that you do that are bad, or you're a workaholic, so you don't have to deal with those kind of things. And obviously, that's going to have huge impacts on marriages, relationships, your own mental and physical health. And again, I don't think that we look at those. We always hear you need to be like a boss bitch. You need to be this. You need to work 24/7. And yes, there is a point to that, but I think sometimes people use that as a way to hide, as a way to not deal with some of their things. And again, same things people post about, going out and drinking all the time, or they don't post about doing drugs because you're not supposed to. But I think sometimes we allow that stuff to be too acceptable, and you don't look at the deep root of why people are doing those things. And I think on the other hand of that, there are some things like Lannon had a little bit of a trauma when he was younger, and he was young enough that I don't think he really dealt with. There weren't really coping mechanisms, any things like that, but you still had an experience that still to this day affects you, right?
Yeah, I mean it's can still be scary if you do the same. Just want to say thing that you had this experience, or I mean it's if you every time you do it, that fear comes back. So it's like I said, one of those things that's in the back of your mind that you can I don't know how you let it go because it's there. It's a memory that you can't get away from. So the only way, and I don't know if it's actually dealing with it, but the only way, I guess, if you look back, it was dealing with it. But it's you're scared of a horse. So
What was your experience?
so I don't know. I don't know. I can't remember if I was 5 or 6. Bad horse accident. Got bucked off a horse. Fell down. It landed on my head. Ended up being life lighted. Had a skull fracture. Every time you get on a horse, it's scary. And so, I continued to get on them when I was a kid and ride them. My whole life. So, and I don't know if it was just an unconscious way of dealing with it,
Or
or
maybe
what.
that was a way to deal with it. Like your parents were at least good enough to try to get you back on the horse, kind of a
Well,
thing.
yeah, and I think more or less I tried to get on the horse because of who it was with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if necessarily it was for me, but it was trying to make that person feel better.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, because trauma doesn't just affect you. I mean, the
oh,
people around you that watch that happen to
yeah, I'm
you,
sure
or
that
that
was extremely traumatic for my parents. Because they see what's going on. Like, are you going to make it?
your child's life flighted and they can't get in there with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's tough, so I've been on horses my whole life, and every time you get on, if the horse spooks or if it jumps or runs, I mean it's one of those things where you're not falling off again, so you lock onto it, and so it's scary being even 37 years old. Like, it's terrifying, but
Yeah.
you don't you don't show it, or you don't try to show it.
Some don't. Some
Yeah,
do.
I mean,
I think that's just the
it,
version of
it
it.
it's tough. I mean, because as soon as that horse gets scared, it jumps, it bucks, it does whatever it does, your mind instantly goes back to that moment.
And can you remember?
Oh yeah.
Can you remember actually falling off, or do you
No,
just remember being like in the
I
life
don't
flight?
mind. I don't remember flying or falling off. I don't.
Do you remember the pain of it or anything?
No pain. I don't remember the ambulance ride. I remember my dad talking to me. Um, it sucks. I mean, it's one of those things that, I mean, I don't like talking about it. I can remember the life flight nurse. I mean, it's weird.
Isn't it? It's weird
Yeah,
the
I mean,
things you remember out of those
yeah,
experiences.
it's still. I mean, I don't think I've ever talked about it. I got pictures. I don't know that I remember how old I was. I mean, 5 or 6, but I mean, your memory's kind of shaky.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, I mean, I remember some stuff, but I don't know. It's a tough deal to deal with when you go through something that. I mean, that's one of those more of I guess scared traumas. I mean, it's a physical trauma that you remember what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I like helicopter rides. I don't know. Maybe they should be fun. That's not
We
necessarily a fun one. You know. I mean, like I said, I can't see the nurse's face, but I can hear her, and I can see her standing or sitting over, in the helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember parts of being in the hospital, but other than that, it was. They said I would never play sports, anything, because of going to suffer from headaches your whole life. So that's something that luckily I didn't suffer from. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
get migraines sometimes, but I don't know that's necessarily from that. I can't say it's not, but
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things that, like I said, every you go down there, to my grandpa's house, you get on a horse, and you try to do it, but it's one of those things that if I ever get asked, hey, do you want to take the horses hunting or take the horses, for a ride? It's always like, yeah, I'd rather not. It's just I don't choose to get on them. Like I said, I think it's one of those. If I get on the horse and ride it with grandpa, then he doesn't feel like it was his fault because they were his horses. I was with him, and I know he blamed himself for a long time
Mm-hmm.
that it was his fault, So I think that's part of the. If you go down there, get on the horse, grandpa thinks you're okay,
Yeah.
and you don't. He's not blaming himself, and you're okay, whatever. So you do that and try to hide the emotion just so he doesn't feel bad,
Mm-hmm.
which is it's scary every time you get on. But I mean, I avoid it, I think, as much as I can. But
Well, and I think that's one thing that it's hard to, if you look at it that direction. So I love horses, love getting on them whenever we go down to grandpa's house or whatever. I'm always the one who wants to get on the horse and I'll go by myself. I think we went one time together, the three of us. But it actually surprises me, not surprises, but you're very good with the horses. They really like you. You like being around them. It's just when you actually have to get on the horse is when you lock up. And
well, you have when you're on the horse. I mean, you can be as good as you want with the horse. You can know what you're doing. You can be an expert horse rider. But ultimately, when you get on that horse, you have no control. It's a big enough animal that if it wants you off or if it is
mm-hmm,
scared, you're not going to stop it,
yeah,
and you have zero control of that animal. Now, you can guide the animal and you can be good with it and it can trust you and whatever, but if it panics or gets scared, you're not going to stop it. I mean, it's big enough that you will not control it.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
so
and animals, they can sense your fear.
yeah.
So when you have it and it's that ingrained deep in you, it's not going away. Um, and it was Landon's got this thing. He's got this really crazy death grip. Like his grip is the strongest in the world. It's actually really irritating when he holds on to you and he doesn't let you go. But that's the thing is I remember the first time I think we went out on the horses and you got it all saddled up and you got on at first and it kind of started sidestepping on you and that look on your face and you gripped that saddle horn so tight and I could see that look on your face and that's the first time I'd actually experienced watching you have like a little bit of a flashback to it. I mean, you still handled it like if no one was looking they wouldn't have known that you were like having that, but since I was watching you because that's the first time I've seen you on a horse, yeah, I could see that reaction to it. But then you got the loosened up and you moved on because you have been riding horses your whole life, so you've already gone through this. But for me, being on the opposite side, there has to be that respect because I don't understand it. I don't understand your fear because I'm the total opposite. I love them. I want to get on them, and I have to be careful not to push you because I think the last few times when I wanted on, you went and saddled it for me. I got on and went and rode around by myself, and that was 100% fine. But I think there has to be a little bit of that understanding and a little bit of grace to the other person who has a little bit of that trauma. Like if they don't need to be pushed, don't be pushed. If they're dealing with it, like, I think there needs to be, like I said, a little bit of understanding for the other
Well,
person.
yeah, I mean, I think that's part of, someone that experiences a PSD trauma from the military, like why the relationship portion of working through that is so important, because some people have a really hard time asking for help. Well, I mean, in a relationship like with us, like if you're dealing with something or if I'm dealing with something, most of the time one of us doesn't have to ask for help. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can read the other person as something's not right or something's going on or whatever, so you can help that person without them asking.
Mm-hmm.
And then that way, maybe it's not as hard for the person that's experiencing the flashback or the little bit of the depression because they're in the moment or whatever. You can go just sit with them or give them what they need without them asking. So I think that's really part of where we've dealt with it so well. Is, I mean, if you're having a bad day for whatever reason, or if I am, if you know the person well enough in your relationship, you can, I don't know what the person needs, just to be sat with or
Mm-hmm.
talked to or just whatever it may be, you can do it without being asked. And then maybe it calms them down. Maybe, it just helps their mood and
Maybe
they
it's
can deal
just,
with it.
yeah, maybe it's just leaving them alone. Maybe they just
Yeah.
need time. You can sit there, but they don't want to have a conversation, you know? Yeah, maybe sometimes the things that they need aren't huge. It's not like you got to make some big production about what they need. Like you said, sometimes they just want you to sit by them. Maybe that's
Yeah.
it. Maybe they just want
I
someone.
mean, it could be just the comfort thing, I
Yeah.
mean, maybe the sitting with them on the couch, or I don't know, in the room with them on the floor, just whatever. Maybe it's a comfort thing that just calms them down enough to where they're not stressing about whatever it is they're stressing about, and each person's different. Where I think that's what's helped our relationship is you got to learn each other,
Mm-hmm.
and I think part of what's helped us is with your situation. I mean, we've known each other since third grade, so I already knew what happened.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a huge thing.
So
And you were
it
a part of it in a sense that
right.
you
We
were part
like I
of the
said, we grew up,
community.
so everybody knew what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I didn't have to
but
share that story
right,
and go through
so
all of it.
it was kind of one of those things that benefited us to where I didn't. I guess I don't know that I knew how to help you with it, but the more we were around each other, the more you could see what was happening. And hey, if you try this, it didn't work. Okay, you try this, and this seems to work. Or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So, and sometimes you don't know what if the bad day's coming from that or if it's coming from something
Yes.
else. So it's like, and there is a point where there's been a few times where it's like, yeah, I've been frustrated with it, and it's like, okay, I've had enough. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you need to get out of whatever you're doing because
Yes.
whatever I'm doing is not helping. And maybe that clicks to you a little bit, and it's like, okay, I need to get out of my funk. This is what we need to do. We need to
Mm-hmm.
go for a drive because it's going to help me out, or we need to go do this because I really enjoy doing this to get me out of the mood. I mean, there may be a point where you're not asking for help, but I need to ask you, what do we need to do?
Yeah.
How do I help you get out of this? Or hey, you've been in a bad mood for a week. Like, what's going on? Like, do we need to
Yeah.
go do this, or we need to be on a vacation or something to clear your mind, or do we need to go, drive up to the lake or something just to let you sit in the car and just look,
Mm-hmm.
just whatever it is that relaxes you, I guess.
Yeah, because I think the hardest thing in for me, just in life in general, I don't like asking for help. I really try to deal with things on my own because, like I said, I just don't like asking for help, and I'm also very private with my life and my feelings. My feelings are very important to me, and I don't I don't like expressing something and then being told it's not important or what I'm feeling isn't not dumb, but it's just maybe what I'm feeling isn't right. So as from issues from my past, I've had a really hard time expressing myself. So that was a big struggle for me in our relationship is actually telling you that I'm maybe having issues dealing with, things in my past, or maybe it was just a bad week, but you don't know because I won't
Yeah.
tell you. And so I think you have to communicate as much as you can with someone who loves and cares about you. If you communicate, then they're going to be able to help you. And like I said, maybe that helping is just leaving you alone and not, like letting you sit there by yourself, go read a book. They understand that you need a little bit of space to deal with it yourself. Or maybe you come up to them and you know, they've learned your signs of when you grab their hand or you do something holding, they can read you. They know.
Yeah, and that helps with the relationship. And I think too, the whatever the, I don't know, the style or the version of trauma you've went through, because if it's a, I mean, yours is more of an emotional trauma
Mm-hmm.
because it didn't really affect you physically, you know, but like where mine was more of a physical thing, it's harder to deal with, I think, as far as, because like I can sit down with you on the couch or do whatever, or just hold you or do whatever, and it helps you emotionally,
Yeah, that's
you know,
true.
or whatever. But like my fear is very specific. So like the trauma of it, where I don't know how anything like that makes you feel better. Like
Yeah, I
I
wouldn't know
don't I
how I
don't know
would
how
be able
to,
to help you.
you know, if you get on a horse and it freaks out, I mean, I don't know what makes you feel better other than trying to deal with your fear and get back on,
Mm-hmm.
because the fear is in the moment of what's happening, and it's a fear of getting hurt to that extent again. So I don't know how you deal with it, because it's the location of of the accident. Um, you know, we still go there,
Mm-hmm.
but it's weird because that the location where my grandpa lives is like, it's like home. I don't know that I have anywhere I feel more comfortable, like just at ease.
Mm-hmm.
Now the horses, I mean, I like them. Like I go up to them, I can pet them.
Yeah.
You know, they put their head on my shoulder. Like I'm very comfortable with them, and it feels like the horse is at ease when it's with me. But it's that moment when you get on them, and I think it's that as soon as you get on them, it's the control is gone.
Yeah.
You have no more control.
Mm-hmm.
And I've grown up my whole life not liking being in control. So,
Out of control.
well, not liking the fact when you're
Oh,
not in control.
gotcha. Yeah.
So I don't know if that's stems from that. If I'm not in control of the situation, I don't want to be there. If we get in a car, like I don't like it when I'm not driving because I'm
Yeah.
not in control.
I don't get to
So
drive.
I I don't know if that's where that comes from. Maybe it is. I've never thought about it, but you get on, yeah. As soon as you get on that horse, you can guide it. You can try to will it all you want, but ultimately that horse has control.
It has a mind of its own.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and where in just in general in life, like you want to be in charge. You want to own your own company. You want to, you know, always be the one driving the car, whatever. But I can control that.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's me. Like I don't have to let someone else be in control, and I don't know if that's part of where that comes from, but you know, I don't know. It's hard to deal with that stress from the physical trauma of being hurt and being around the thing that does hurt you, like being
Mm-hmm.
around a horse, you know, and it sucks because, you know, it's not the horse's fault. It was scared too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, something scared it. That's why it did what it did. You know, I mean, so not like the horse was being mean. Horses are awesome animals. But it's one of those things where it was
Freak accident kind of
it was
thing.
frightened.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so and you know you're 5 or 6 years old, and when you get a 2,000 pound animal that takes off, you're not holding on.
Mm-mm.
You know, so it's
Did you have to wear a helmet after that every time you got on a
yeah.
horse?
So my mom made me wear a bicycle helmet for I don't know, a few years because she was scared it was going to happen again.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think eventually I had enough of it, and I was like, I don't like the way it looks because you know Grandpa's got a cowboy hat on and or a baseball cap on, you know. So it's one of those things where, I mean, you're down there because you like Grandpa. You're trying to look like Grandpa. You're trying to be like him, and well, no one else is wearing a helmet, so I'm done wearing it. You know, I mean, I don't know how long it lasted. I don't really remember. I've got pictures.
I remember the pictures. Yeah. It was
But
cute.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can you see why your parents were scared. I mean, they're terrified of you getting back on the horse from
Mm-hmm.
from it happening. So I mean, they they're trying to protect you. They're your mom and dad, you know. But when you're a kid, even you know, grade school, high school, whatever. I mean, you don't. You got that thing in the back of your mind. Well, I look dumb.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to wear a helmet on a horse. This is dumb, you know, or whatever. Grandpa's got a cowboy hat on. I want to wear a cowboy hat, you know, be like Grandpa type thing. So, I mean, I don't know that that's a stress or a fear that will ever go away. I don't know how to make it go away. I mean, the most comfortable thing for me is just to get off. Like I don't want to be on here anymore.
Yeah.
Like, But the problem is when you go for a horse ride, if you're up in the mountains, the only way back is on the horse.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to keep your emotions in check. You got to try to control your heart rate and just deal with it till you get back. Because like you said, a horse is a smart animal. I mean, they can sense when you don't feel good.
Mm-hmm.
They can sense when you're stressed, and if you make that animal stressed, it just makes the situation worse. So I, it's tough to. I mean, I don't know that I've ever felt fear that way ever, especially when it goes. I remember I don't know. I was probably late teens, and we had a horse take off on us, when I was with Grandpa, and I just remember like he always had a rope that he would tie through the saddle horn and back around so you could grab onto it.
Okay.
And I remember grabbing hold of that, and the horse calmed down, it stopped bucking, got it under control, and I remember not being able to let go. Like
There's the grip.
I had to like literally peel my fingers off because I couldn't let go. So it's a scary feeling that I don't know where I don't think I've ever felt that anywhere else.
Were you on the horse by yourself, or was Grandpa with you?
No, I was in my 16, 17 years old or whatever,
Oh, okay.
So I mean I don't think I've ever been on double on a horse like that since the accident.
Mm-hmm.
It was always, saddles just aren't big enough to put,
No,
two people in
they're
them or
not meant
whatever.
for
So,
that.
as a little kid, they'd put you on the front of the
Mm-hmm.
saddle, but it was more or less, ride down the end of the field and back, because Grandpa's taking the grandkids
Mm-hmm.
for a ride type thing or
But
whatever.
you
But
landed on pavement.
yes,
Yeah.
landed on the asphalt.
Yeah. But I mean, you always you continue to go on rides with your grandpa, and you still enjoyed the
Oh
experiences.
yeah, I mean
so, what was that long trip you went on? How long were you guys gone?
I don't know how many years after. Like I said, it's kind of hard to remember after the accident, but I was probably somewhere between 9 and 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the deal was, but Grandpa was going down to southern Utah, and we went down there for 10, 12 days, and it was just a big like camping trip. Like
Mm-hmm.
you'd take the horses, go so far, set up camp, go back to camp, and it was just riding down in southern Utah. And he called, obviously asked Mom and Dad if I could go, and I wanted to, so I went. I mean, there's been hunting trips and other rides, and we were out on Antelope Island when I was a kid, out on the Great Salt Lake, and it was everything that was done with Grandpa was horse oriented.
Mm-hmm.
That's how he grew up. We always had him with us, and it's really weird to me is after the accident. I mean, I don't remember when I was, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old that it scared me. But the older I got, the more scared I became. It's weird. Like, 18 years old, 19, 20, late 20s. Like, the older I get, when I get on them, the more scared I get when it freaks out. And I don't know why. I don't remember being scared after the accident at 10 years old. It just seems like maybe it wasn't relevant because you were young enough that you didn't know, but I don't know why. But like now, if I get on it and it jumps, it's probably worse now than it was 15, 20 years ago. And I don't
That's
know why.
interesting. Maybe because now you know. I mean, you've been told the story so much and you've gone through it, but maybe now you realize that could be a life-ending injury for you.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
and
you
now that we're
understand more
married,
reality.
maybe it's the fact that if you fall off and get hurt bad enough, what who does it hurt and what do you lose?
Mm-hmm.
Where when you're 16 years old, what are you worried about losing?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not thinking about dying when you're 16 years old, or you losing, your wife or anybody. But now that's a lot more relevant.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the interesting thing about your story is that you had a drive to basically push through that because of someone else. You had a reason to keep pushing to get past this fear because it was something you love this person more than your fear. So this singular person, you wanted to basically get past this fear because you wanted to be with him. And I think that's a wonderful thing because you didn't actually have to have anyone physically tell you, well, you have to get past this, you have to do this. You just said, I'm going to do it because I want it for that
Well,
reason.
and it's a
And I think
different
that's
way
wonderful.
to, I guess, deal with it. But
Yeah.
it's a way I guess I dealt with it that I didn't know I was dealing with it.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're that old, you don't know it's what a traumatic event is
Hmm.
when you're young like that, or a stressful situation, or whatever. You were able to deal with it in a way that is maybe a good way to deal with it. You just didn't know that's what was happening.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. The
know,
reality of the situation wasn't there. You
no,
just didn't have that function. But now you look back and you can look at it. I mean, it's perspective in any situations. I can look back on mine when I'm a teenager and I can look back and see, the things I dealt with, how I dealt with them. It's just in any form in life, I think it's all about perspective. But I think the main thing is that you have to realize that it not only affects you, but if you have people in your life, it affects people around you. And it also affects your lifestyle. Whether that means that you're not having a lifestyle because you sit at home and you hide away and you don't want to live because you're too scared of
well,
it.
and I think that in itself makes the stressful situation, the trauma situation, whatever, worse
Mm-hmm.
because there is no dealing with it.
You're ruminating on it, you're making
Right.
it worse, you're hiding away to
And
sit
that's
there
why,
and
like
live
I
with
said, the
it.
relationship thing there, like you got to find that person that makes you feel comfortable first because that person's going to understand when they've pushed it too far.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you push someone that's been in a traumatic situation too far and make them open up too much at one time, or constantly you're nagging at them to fix it,
Deal with it, deal with it, deal with it.
it could backfire. Instead of, hey, what do we got to do to get rid of, or not get rid of, or deal with the situation that's happening right now? Not the what if. Like, you're having a bad day today. How do we get through that? Then how do we get through the next one? And then maybe it lasts 2 weeks this time. And you don't have a flare up, I guess. Then maybe the next one happens and you go 3 weeks. But how do you slowly help that person through it? And the relationship is huge with that
Yeah.
because you end up understanding that's the person that you trust.
Well, I think it creates such a strong bond, you know, between people, relationships. I mean, it's so crazy when I go out there and I see other people, cheating on each other and creating these other lives, or they're so worried about their spouse cheating on them, and I'm I like there's no way in my head that I could ever do that because no one is ever you. No one has gone through all this stuff with me. And for me, the way I love is emotional. I connect emotionally to the person, and that's where I get that emotion and the love. I'm not one who just says that person's hot and I want to go do them. Like, that's just not me. So when I see all that, it's like I don't connect. I don't understand how people can do that. I'm like, how can you leave all of that you had? And maybe they never had that,
And they
and
may
that's
not have ever,
why.
had that emotional connection,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that's what they needed.
And maybe that's how you're pushing the other person away by not giving them that emotional connection, or and maybe that's on you for not asking for the emotional connection, for not asking. I think I heard someone say one time that you're spending this life with this person and you want them to be a part of it and you want to share the good times with them, and how dare you take away the times when you struggle? They want to be there for you. They want to be a part of that struggle because they love you so much. They are on your side. They're on your team, and you're not letting them. You're not giving them that opportunity to be there for you because you are being so selfish about it. And that kind of hit me because, yeah, I had done that in the past because I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want to be the girl or the woman who was always scared about this, scared about that, always having an emotional issue. Like, I didn't want to be that person. So I tried to ignore it and not allow that to affect my life. But it ended up backfiring because I wasn't actually dealing with it. I was just kind of throwing it under the rug and continuing to move on. And that wasn't the right way to do it. There's a healthy way to do it, and it's finding
Well,
that.
yeah, I mean, you had to realize, I think that, I mean, if I didn't want to be part of that or help you deal with it, why would I be here? I
Well,
mean, if I was the type of person that was just like, well, I don't want to, deal with it, or I'm sick of the problem you've got, or whatever, then see you later, I'm gone. But I mean, you gotta at some point realize that whoever you're married to, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, or whatever, you're just starting out, that maybe that person wants to help you. Maybe that person likes you enough that when you have a problem, they're willing to help you. And I think that maybe that willingness isn't there, or that person doesn't trust the person truly,
Mm-hmm.
so they're not willing to let them in. Um, but if that's truly the person you want to be with, then you need to find a way to let them in and help you work it out.
Yeah. And it's not just for trauma. We're not talking about just that. We're talking about struggles. We're talking about, you know, anything in life that's affecting you emotionally or physically is a struggle. And let that other person be there for you. Allow them the
Oh,
opportunity
yeah, I
for
think
that.
couples have all kinds of with struggles. I mean, I don't care if it's you're dealing with an emotional struggle, you're dealing with a struggle physically. Maybe it's your weight. Maybe it's you're not happy with your body, or you had a bad day at work and you just need someone to just talk to
Mm-hmm.
about it, or you need to vent to someone, or come home and just vent to them and let that person just listen. Maybe you don't even need to talk back to them. They just want someone to talk to, or you know, hey, I for the past 2 weeks, I just don't, my body hasn't felt good or whatever. It's like, okay, well then what do we need to do to fix it? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it could be any issue that you're dealing with any given day, any given week or whatever, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a traumatic event. And that's why I think that, what you first talked about is we overuse the word trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Some people actually have a traumatic thing that's happened to them, and some people it's just a stressful situation,
Yes.
and there's ways to deal with both of them, but you need to use your communication to deal with the stressful situation, because most of it's stress.
Yes.
Most of it's a stressful situation. I mean, there's a lot of people that have dealt with trauma, but we get them confused, and it's a lot easier, I think, and in our relationship, I guess, maybe not everybody, but it's a lot easier for us to deal with a stressful situation than it has deal with a traumatic situation,
Oh, it's
because
deeper. Trauma's a deeper
it's
thing.
way harder to get through that. We've done pretty well at it, but the stressful thing is sometimes it's one of those things where you need the kick in the pants that says, you know what, that's life. You need to
Yeah.
get over it.
Yeah.
Like, push through it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're never going to get around this. It's part of life.
Yeah.
And
Society is letting everybody do
yeah,
that too
and
much.
some of the stressful situations, okay, let's sit down and talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, if it's a physical situation, you're not happy with your body, it's not one of those things where it's like you need to sit down and get over it. Like, that's life. No, that type of stressful situations, hey, let's sit down. Maybe we need to figure out what we're buying for our food. We need to eat healthier. We need to start going to the gym. Let's get you feeling better.
Mm-hmm.
Like, change it. Like, maybe that stressful situation is a click to you to say, hey, I need to change something.
Yeah.
Where a traumatic situation, like maybe one you've been through, it's not just a click like you need to change it. That's something you need to work through because it's trauma.
Mm-hmm.
A stressful situation, I mean,
They're always going to happen. They're always going to be
I
there.
don't know. I mean, people don't like it, but we talked about, one episode about David Goggins. He says that a lot of people, obviously, they don't like him because he's so blunt, but he's got a thing where he says people may be calling you fat or they may be calling you dumb, but what if you are fat? Maybe it's a wake up call to, hey, I need to make myself healthier. Like, okay, was it rude that someone called you fat, or was it offensive? Yeah, okay, it could be. But maybe it's a wake up call. You need to say, you know what? I don't like that. I want to fix the problem
Mm-hmm.
so that people don't do that.
Exactly. Solve
Okay,
the problem by
let's
fixing
solve it.
it.
Let's fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And in the process of fixing that problem, what did you do? You maybe just prolonged your life. You maybe just prolonged the time you have with your spouse. You maybe just made yourself healthier. The working out doesn't have to be anything like going for a walk and eating healthier. It doesn't mean you need to go lift weights, because not everybody likes doing that. I mean, there could be, I don't like this, or I had a stressful day at work. Well, let's talk about it. What was stressful about it? Okay, we can deal with that in 20 minutes. Okay, maybe we can give each other some helpers. The next time it happens at work, do this. Or, you know what? Your emotional response to that stressful situation, that's your decision.
Yeah.
So let's figure out a way to deal with that emotional situation. So there's a lot of things we've had to deal with, I think, is a couple that is been both, like the traumatic situation and also the stressful situation. And like you said, there's a lot of things in society today that we get the two confused from.
Yes.
I brought up earlier that hiker. I can't remember his story. I mean, we'd have to look it up, but he was hiking. rock climbing, something of that nature, and that rock fell on his arm and he was stuck for.
Is that the one they made the movie about?
Yeah, they made a movie about him. He was
Yeah.
stuck, if I remember off my memory, for I can't remember how long he was stuck under the rock. He ended up cutting his own arm off
To
to
survive.
survive.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty traumatic situation. So dealing with that is way different than dealing with I come home from work and I was so stressed out, did it because I had an exam or a test or a qualification. It's not the same thing. And we get the trauma and that type of stress confused.
Yes. And I think we're allowing that to run our lives a little bit because we want to say, well, I had this traumatic experience. When no, you just had some struggles you had to went through, and so you're trying to move forward from that by treating it like a trauma,
Well,
but it's not. You need to treat it like a stressor and a struggle,
yeah.
and you need to deal with it in that
And I
frame.
heard something the other day. Somebody said it says, no amount of anxiety will change the future. So you got to realize that you can have all the anxiety in the world and stress about something all you want, all night long, all day long, but it won't change tomorrow.
No.
So how do we better cope with that anxiety to prepare for tomorrow so that we're not so stressed? Like
Yeah.
and I think what we do as a couple, do you confide in each other? Do you help each other out? Do you talk about, hey, I got this coming up? Maybe you help me study for something, or we help deal with a situation, that's just stressing you out. And that communication with a couple, I think, helps. And that's where you really need to, if you truly like the person or love the person you're with, that communication is huge so that you can work through those stressful
Mm-hmm.
situations. Because if you're not comfortable with the person, or you just get married just because, that communication and that connection is not going to be there.
Yeah, those situations, they're going to really be glaringly obvious that you guys aren't supposed to be together because those stressful situations are going to just amplify any issue you have. Um, and I think another thing that people say, well, let's talk about it, let's talk about it, let's talk about it. Well, on the other hand, maybe let's not talk about it. Maybe we have to stop talking about our problems. Maybe you need to stop coming home and bitching and moaning about what's going on, and because all you're doing is reliving that situation. Sometimes
Well,
your
yeah.
significant other says, okay, enough, like
Well,
stop
because
talking about that.
that attitude all the time can be toxic.
Exactly.
Like if you're around a person that's always complaining, always down, poor me, poor me, poor me, like that rubs off on you.
Mm-hmm.
That's toxic. Like you're going to start feeling the same way. Like, why is everything happening to us? Why is everything whatever? So, you know, it really sucks, but there comes to a point where it's like, hey, look, I've had enough. Like, you got to stop this.
You're creating
I,
your own
I don't
struggles
know
by
what we
doing
got to
that.
do, but enough's enough. Like
Mm-hmm.
we gotta get ourselves out of this funk or whatever, because it's bringing me down what you're doing, or vice versa. So what do we got to do? But enough's enough. Like, what do we got to do to change our situation? We got to go to the gym more. Do we got to talk more? Do we need to work this out? Do we need to, find a different source of income so that we're not stressed about a financial situation? But this poor me thing, that's not good for you.
No,
It brings your mental state down all the time.
you'll never grow out of it because you're creating your own stress and your own struggles
Yeah.
by continually talking about it, and then you're amplifying that situations, and really you're asking for other situations of the same frequency to come to you. So if you're always, poor me, this never works, I always have problems, all you're asking for is more of that to come into your reality. If you never look at the bright side, if you never look at the good things you have in your life and are grateful for what you have, then your life is always gonna fucking suck because you are the problem. You are the one who's saying, my life sucks. I always have problems. And they're always the people who say, I have trauma. I have PTSD. No, you don't. No. You let's look at that up and let's look at that. No, you don't actually have that. You just had a bad situation and you made it worse by trying to find all these issues and you made it compounded upon it. That's just you. That's you need to fix that.
Well, and that part of that you do have to fix on your own, because no matter if you're going to be that type of person that's always the poor me, why me, it's always happened to me, I've never have any good luck. No matter what I say to help with the situation, it will never change because your mindset is not right.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
got to you got to get your mind right so that when someone tries to help you, you can help yourself, because you can't help someone that's not willing to help themselves.
Yep.
It won't ever happen. It's just it's too tough. I mean, I can try to help you all I want, but if you've got set in your mind that no,
Mm-hmm.
it's never going to work.
Yeah.
You know,
And I think we've gone through that. We've gone through a lot of.
well, I think the biggest thing for us too, though, I mean, like you said, you're very emotional, or just with your thoughts is how you connect with somebody. You know, especially with me. But like, I'm more physical,
Mm-hmm.
big time. So um, if you're not in a good emotional state and we're not having sex, then I'm not in a good mood,
Yes.
and then I get whatever frustrated and not in a good mood, or and obviously you can tell. So if you're not in a situation to where you're in a good mindset, then you don't want to have sex, which rubs off on me,
Yep.
and then I'm in a bad mood, and then it
Mm-hmm.
creates a toxic situation in our home.
Yes, it's just a domino effect
Right.
because of one problem,
So
and it just
it's
made
one
it
of those things
worse.
where I have to have a happy medium with you to keep you at a level state,
Mm-hmm.
and it goes the other way.
Yeah.
And that's part of how we make each other work. Like there could be times where, mentally, what you want to do is go for a drive because it helps clear your head.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do I want to go for a 2 hour drive? No, I don't. But guess what? We go do it. Now, are there some days where you probably don't feel like having sex? Yeah, probably. But do you do it? Yes, because that's what calms me down. That's what makes me feel connected with you. And there's things, like I said, that I do that I don't want to do because it makes you feel connected with me. I could care less about going for a drive, or I could care less about sitting on the couch and watching a movie because I'll probably fall asleep. But I think it's that connection with each other,
Yeah.
just sitting on the couch that you like. Like I said, me, it's more of a physical thing. Like, there's times I don't know, we're sitting on the couch and I lay down and lay on you, just my head on your lap. You scratch my head or my back. That physical connection is what relaxes me.
Yes, it
So
does.
you do that, and within 2 or 3 minutes, I'm probably asleep because that's where I feel most calm,
Mm-hmm.
where I feel like I'm okay. Because if I'm not calm, I don't sleep.
Yeah.
I stress out about whatever. Sometimes I don't even know what, and I don't sleep. I mean, all I got to do when I come home at night is if I lay in bed and I reach over and touch you, you're just asleep. I touch you, and that's one of the last things I remember because it's that physical connection. You're, like you said, more mental in that state. So it's a big deal to find that happy medium between the both of us.
Yeah, and I think we had to learn that. And the only reason why we can have this conversation now is because we had that conversation earlier in our marriage.
Oh yeah.
We had to find out, and I think the problem is we struggled through that, and we couldn't find our way back to each other for a little bit. It was like we couldn't figure we had dug our hole so deep of one problem compounding to another to another to another, and it was like so many we didn't know how to fix it. And then as you start talking and you start repairing one by one, you realize how simple it is. How simple
Oh
these
yeah.
things can be to make each other so happy and feel so fulfilled.
That we
It's
just weren't doing the simple
yeah,
things to make it work.
and that's
It was
it's just a
we were
compound.
making a simple problem a bigger problem.
Yes.
And if we would have just done this little thing and communicated with each other better about whatever was going wrong, like obviously if we're not having sex, there's something going wrong in your life that's not making you feel loved
Mm-hmm.
or not making you feel whatever that I'm not doing, that if I'd have done it, we would never would have stopped having sex for a week or 2 days or whatever it was, or been in an argument. And the same way, like been in a bad mood for 2 days. Well, you think back at it, it's like, well, we haven't done it in 2 days because of work or because of whatever. And it's like then when we fix that and actually have sex, it's like it feels like the problems are gone.
Yes.
Or if I give you what you're needing with a conversation or just holding your hand or just being with you for the day, it's like the problems seem to like just kind of melt away.
Yeah, because you realize how unimportant they were.
Yeah.
There really wasn't a
It was a
problem. You
simple
just
thing. We just
yeah.
made it a bigger issue than it needed
Yes.
to.
I agree. I think in life we make things too hard. Uh, and that's kind of where we want to end with this is that I think people are trying to make their life too hard by intertwining using struggle to trauma. Why do you want to use the word trauma? Why do you want that recognition of using the word trauma? Because I can tell you the people who've had trauma don't want that stigma. They don't want that word used in their
Well,
lives.
like you said,
So,
the physical trauma that I went through, I don't think I've ever talked to it with anybody. I don't want to talk about it.
Yes.
It's something that it's not like, oh, look at me, I've had trauma.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what we've perceived it is, oh, look at me, I've had a trauma. I've gone through this
Yep.
trauma, that trauma. It's like, well, what about I mean, you see a lot of people don't want to talk about their trauma because I don't, it's not something to be proud of.
No,
I
it's
don't,
not a badge of
it's,
honor.
no, and I think that's what it's come to be,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the other thing that we've realized too here is you can't be afraid to admit that you were wrong
Mm-hmm.
or that it's me, so that when you have that conversation, it's like, yeah, it's probably something I did, and admit that you're wrong so you can fix it. It's a little issue, but maybe it's something that I caused
Mm-hmm.
or you caused or whatever. So I think that's another big thing is you need to make sure that you're able to take the blame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was on me, and it doesn't even mean that you need to say verbally, yeah, it's my fault. Well, maybe just realize it's your fault and just fix the issue.
Yeah.
I mean, because that works as well.
Yeah. Like we said, let's not make life so hard. Let's listen to each other, you know, try to communicate the best you can, find the little things to make each other's life better, and then we're all going to have happier, better lives, and we're going to continue to grow, and we're going to continue to go through struggles as human beings, as couples, as friends. We're going to continue to do that, but the way you do that is by working on yourself and working on the relationships you have, because those relationships are so very important in your life. You don't realize it until they're not there. And
Yeah.
you don't realize the things you have physically until you can't do those things because of those problems. So I hope for those of you who are listening, if you have had a trauma, it is okay to ask for help. It's okay to find someone to help you, and it's okay to admit that you have trauma. And for those of you who are using the word trauma and you don't have it, take a step back and try to realize why you're trying to use that word, and then you need to backpedal and let's fix that and start using the word struggle, because you don't want to take away from the people who actually are dealing with trauma. You are no less important. You are no less someone who needs to be heard or understood, but you just need to do it with the respect of everybody else. So we hope our experiences have helped you a little bit.
Well, and we haven't, I don't think, gone into 100% detail as the fact of what actually happened in my trauma or your trauma. It's more of a general overview. So, I mean, if someone's experienced something and they want to ask a question or something that maybe I can go deeper into what happened or you can go
Mm-hmm.
deeper into what happened and we gotta answer it. Maybe we can help you out. Not saying that I can help you out. So if you have a question and you want to do it through a message, if you want us to talk about it, either way, I mean, if we can help, great. If not, you still ask the question and we can tell you what we think, how maybe we dealt with the same issue, dig into it a little deeper. Maybe it helps, maybe it doesn't. I mean, you never know until you ask. It's one of those things, like you just said, don't be afraid to ask for help. I mean, you can ask one of us. Doesn't mean it's going to help. Maybe it does.
Yeah.
Maybe it helps you out. You never know.
Sometimes the help you need isn't something extravagant. It's getting a simple
Support.
question answered.
It could be support.
Yeah, maybe you just want to tell us your story, and that's it. You just want to express your story, and we want to hear it. We want to hear it. I mean, it's not like we're going to bash on you. We're not going to do anything wrong. We want to hear your stories, and we're going to be understanding and try to be empathetic and sympathetic with you.
Well, and the
But
best
we
thing
also
is,
want to give you a little bit of reality check of your situation as
I
well.
think the best thing too is, I mean, even if someone tells us their situation or asks for, hey, what would you guys do? Maybe it's nothing we've been through, but maybe your story helps us in a situation
Absolutely.
that maybe we haven't experienced.
Oh, I'm learning. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe someone can give us some advice like, hey, this is what we did,
Mm-hmm.
helped our marriage. This is what we did to help our relationship. And it's like, oh, maybe we can hear that and be like, oh, cool. Maybe we can
Yep.
try that because that actually sounds like that would work. I mean, because everybody's situation is different. Just because it
100%.
works for us doesn't mean it's going to work for anybody else. Maybe it does. You
Yeah.
never know.
We'd love to hear your stories, whether we can help you or you can help us. Either way, we want to help each other. We want to connect to you guys as individuals, and we just want to live happier and healthier and fuller lives. So we really appreciate being here with us today, and we hope you'll see us next Wednesday.